back to Nhsm Online. My name's Mark. I'm going to be your host today, and we're going to be playing a game called Can You Build It? What are they going to be building? They're going to be building a chair, and here's the rules. They're going to be graded on 3 things. The first thing is design. Does it look good? The second thing is, can you sit in the chair? The third thing is, does it survive the roof? Let's introduce you to the contestants really quickly. We've got the one and only Scott Paulson. He's ready to go. We've got the crafty Jarrett Carlson. We're missing a contestant right here. And then we've got the famous engineer, Mr. Logan Myers. But like I said, we're waiting for one more. Oh, I think he's right there. That's Mr. Joe Bareilles. He's got his mask on already.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry I'm late. Home Depot was an absolute madhouse. They're only letting like 1.5 people in at a time.
Oh no, he's good. He's got his stuff. He's got his stuff. Okay, here's the rules, guys. We're gonna put 30 minutes on the clock. You've got 30 minutes to build a chair. May the best builder win. Ready, go.
Mark, what do these do?
Yeah, Joe, good luck.
Oh.
Okay, Scott, I know we're just starting here. We're just getting going. What are you thinking for your build?
2 words.
Looks like his tool was not turned on. What's the hope for your build?
Greatness.
Joe, what do you put on some knee pads over here?
Yeah, I was my thought behind it is I don't want sawdust to get lodged into my knee.
And then we don't have Logan Myers. We don't know where he is. He's so confident that he's not even here.
Kids, just make sure you always have eye protection. Really, overall, like face protection. Sometimes when I'm building something at home, I like to use a bee suit, a beekeeping suit. You got to make sure that you get in there right at a nice 90-degree angle, and you want to cut towards yourself.
What's your thought on the build right now so far?
I wish I had a few more thoughts on it, honestly. I think I'm doing great personally. I'm just so proud of myself and happy to be here. And I've made a square so far, and I think that's great progress.
Mr. Joe Bareilles, thanks for staying safe, buddy.
You know, sawdust in your eye is no joke. A good belt also helps keep your hips in line.
You got your tools. You got no tools in there yet, but they're coming.
No, but the kid at Home Depot, the 16-year-old who told me, hey, if this is your first time using any of these tools, this is what you need to get.
That's great.
And
Now, Joe, so far all we're seeing is one piece of wood.
I'm just having a ton of fun just cutting right now.
That's good.
So, the one thing I'll say is, Popo saw, you know, it's 150 years old. This thing sucks. So I'm really disappointed.
Who's Popo?
He's my great uncle Lester. We called him Popo.
That's great.
And his saw totally sucks.
And then we're over here with Mr. Logan Myers, the engineer. A lot of hope on you, Logan.
Yeah, so today I'm going to be implementing a technique that I had learned. It's an advanced technique I had learned in the Chuckanut Mountains on a kind of a spiritual journey with wood, and it's a listening technique called wood listening. So I'll show you. It's really letting the wood tell you what it wants to be built into.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that must have been really.
Thank you. Logan, I can't hear you.
Right. It's an advanced technique.
Okay.
You can be just as effective with a handsaw as you are with a skill saw, okay? Actually, I don't even know why they call that a skill saw. This takes way more skill. This one kind of looks like what they use at the dentist, you know? This one, I'm like wondering,
We got this.
like this kind of looks like when you're watching those like doctor shows. Like it's like what they use to drill into your bones.
Scott?
Yeah?
Looks like you're almost done.
Pretty much. I've been done for the last 5 minutes. I'm just kind of like, you know, admiring it and sitting in it, just enjoying my creation here. There are some hazards.
There's some hazards to this that will affect the build quality category. Scott, why don't you just take a seat? We're early.
There's actually a little
there's
blood,
some blood
already. Doing good. It may look slightly incomplete, but trust me, cuts are being made. Things will be put into place, and I mean, I'm I'm ready to go.
Oh, doing something.
Yeah, I thought we were building a commode. It's like one of those chairs that doubles as a toilet.
It's a little wobbly.
Yeah, so the thing about it is that's all an optical illusion, okay? So it's all depending on your vantage point, and with some struts and some supports, we'll get that all figured out.
Logan, the wood listener, friend of the trees, how's it going?
So I listened to the wood, and the wood told me, make me into triangles.
Last time I weighed myself, I was 115 pounds in 4th grade, and I think we need this to support that much weight.
I'm here with David. He walked across the street to see what's going on. David, who do you think's gonna win?
Well, I want to vote for Logan because of the engineering background, but his wood listening thing has lost a little bit.
Well, a little credibility.
confidence
Yeah.
and credibility. Jared, I like his exuberance. Scott, though, has got some background in this kind of let's do something crazy and make it work. So if I've got to commit, I think I'm still going to go with Logan, but Scott's going to be a close second.
This is a look of accomplishment.
All right, we're at the end of Can You Build It? And we've got 4 chairs on the ground. I'm a little shocked that we actually have 4 chairs on the ground. Let's go to Scott first. Scott, how do you feel about your chair?
Mark, I feel great about my chair. I mean, this is handcrafted, American made. It's got style and strength. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Jared, how do you feel about your overall build?
Pretty confident.
Pretty confident.
I think it's got the aesthetics. It's got the sittability. I think I could sit there for sure.
How are we doing here?
One, the time limit thing really kind of stressed me out, but I was going for more, not necessarily aesthetic, but I was going for environmentally friendly. And I don't know if you all noticed, but I used the least amount of resources in order for this. This is the first ever handcrafted green chair.
Logan, how do you feel about this chair?
Well, I was wondering if you asked the chair how it feels about being a chair.
Aesthetically, how does it look? On a scale of 1 to 10, you know, the flag's a great touch. I like kind of the more blocky look of it. Outdoor feature, feels great around a campfire. We've got some screws that aren't fully screwed in. We've got some split wood in the
That's a
back.
safety feature right there.
That's a safety feature.
If I went all the way through,
Okay.
you would hurt yourself.
We've got some blood on the chair. I don't know if we caught that. So we got to mark it for a couple of these things. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Jared's chair's got a lot of character to it. Kind of a vintage look. I really, really like it. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I can't give it a 10 out of 10. We've got some screws showing. But other than that, 9 out of 10, it's a great look. Joe Bareilles, the first green chair ever crafted. On the back of it, we've got a screw that completely missed.
It's for the volatile chemicals to give them a chance to breathe.
That's good, that's good. We've got some stuff that isn't quite lined up. It's a little wobbly, and nothing's a lot of straight. We understand it's its own unique piece of art, but we're gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Okay.
If I had an American flag.
Move over to Logan's. Logan's is a really good looking chair here. Looks like something straight out of the kitchen. Unfortunately, we do have a split piece of wood there. I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10 as well. So now we're into the next one. Can you sit in it? You sit in it. Feet up is the rule, and it's doing just fine. That's 10 out of 10 right there. Can you sit in it? It's doing just fine. That's 10 out of 10 for Jared. I'm a little worried to sit in this chair, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Don't lean back.
Here we go. We cannot lean back, but it survived. And I trust my good friend Logan here. 10 out of 10. His survives as well, and I can lean back. Now we're gonna go on to the final test. Can it survive the roof?
Okay. Watch and learn, boys. Watch and learn.
Oh! The American made. Does it survive the fall? It does.
That's American made right there.
Don't be nervous.
Oh, what a landing! All right, let's test it out. That's 10 points for Mr. Jared Carlson.
I would trust my newborn, soon-to-be newborn daughter in this chair. That's how confident I am.
Can I sit in that? I don't even think I'm gonna try.
Well, maybe I won't trust it as much.
It's gonna be okay. You're gonna survive.
Oh! We got a fractured leg there, but it could potentially hold up. I'm helping it out. I'm on the front of it. If I go on the back of it, it will go back. We're still sitting. That's 10 points for Mr. Logan Myers. Okay, and that's the game for us. We've got our contestants again. You know, the chair survived, but you know, it's doing okay. They just need some minor repairs to it. And we've got Joe's
Just need some minor repairs.
and Logan's. And Logan has a fractured leg, torn ACL on the wood there. But really, we got to go back to our winner, Mr. Jared Carlson. Jared, why don't you take a seat in your throne there?
I gotta go home and tell my mom.
There you go. Hey, you guys, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoy the next section in Called to Community. Hey guys, welcome back to the conversation on community. And it's kind of funny that we're talking about community right now because I'm sure all of you feel it. It's like, what community, right? Like we're locked in our homes to the best of our ability. We're trying to respect other people and social distance and, schools at home. And so you're like, community, that's the last thing that I feel like I have right now. And that's why we think it's really important to actually have a conversation about community, because maybe like me, you're experiencing like something's missing. You're like, man, I'm missing something. I want something more. My days feel off. And it's like, yeah, you know what's missing? Community. And it's really, really important. And that's why we want to have a conversation about it. God thinks community is really, really important. He thinks it's so important that actually his plan to reach the world was his community of believers. And so we're going to have a conversation about it. But first I want to start with a truth about community. All communities, all pockets of people actually develop a reputation that people come to know them by. And if you know this in the sports world, you know this about fan bases, right? If you're a Portland Timbers fan or you know about the Portland Timbers, you know about the Timbers Army. You know that they're very passionate, loyal, loud, crazy. I've even heard that for European soccer, European soccer is like the pinnacle, and those sports fans are crazy. And in the U.S., I've heard that the Portland Timbers, the Timbers Army is the most like a European sports team. Now, I've never even been to a game. I've never even been to a game. But I know that reputation is there. For the NFL, if you're a Seahawks fan like myself, you're a proud believer and representative of the 12th man, right? And the 12th man is a very loyal fan base. Even though we stole the name from Texas A&M, they sued us. Don't worry, we paid them, so we can have the name as well too. But the 12th man is a very famous fan base, right? They're known for what? If you listen to ESPN, people talk about it, they'll say, man, it's really hard to play in Seattle. You're not just playing against the Seahawks or the weather, you're also playing against the 12th man. And we're known for being really, really loud. You've got the Hulk fan that's there every single week. I mean, we're just a very passionate, loyal fan base. But it's funny, the 12th man is not the most historical fan base in the NFL. And in fact, if I looked at what is the most impressive fan base in all of football, well, I'd have to go with the Green Bay Packers. I'd have to go with the Cheeseheads. The story behind the Cheeseheads is fascinating to me. Of all the NFL teams, the Green Bay Packers are unique for one famous reason. There isn't a owner or a family of owners that own the Green Bay Packers. No, the town owns the Green Bay Packers. And it's crazy. Grandparents, when they have grandkids, will try to put their grandkids in the lottery system to become season ticket holders, because sometimes it takes 20, 30, 40 years for them to even get to an opportunity to be a season ticket holder. And Green Bay Packer fans are crazy when it's like freezing, like well below zero there. You'll just scan the crowd. You'll see how many of them are not wearing a shirt when it's snowing. I mean, they're yelling. They're very, very passionate. It's really, really, and historically has always been very, very hard to play at Lambeau Field. And I know that, and like I've said, I've never been to Lambeau Field, but I know about the fan base there. It's not just sports that communities have reputations around them. It's literally every community of people. Video game fans have a reputation around them. Geographical locations have reputations around them. If you ask family member or friends about the Northwest that don't live in the Northwest, if you say, hey, what are people like from the Northwest? They might say, well, they're really green and they're really environmental friendly and they love their kayaking and fishing and they're outdoors. They're kind of individualistic and they like to keep to themselves. There's a reputation around the Northwest. Similarly, there's a reputation around the South, right? We know that the South is known for Southern hospitality. We know that in Texas, they like it big, and everything's bigger in Texas. We know that if you go there, everyone wants to wave at you, right? So there's a reputation there. There's a reputation on the East Coast. It's kind of more faster paced lifestyle. Even if you go to New York, it's kind of like keep up or get out, right? There's these reputations that form around pockets of people. And it's really, really interesting because Jesus says, there's a reputation that is supposed to form around the church, that is supposed to form around individual Christians. And I think it's really important that we have that conversation. It comes in John chapter 13. John is Jesus' best friend, and he writes about Jesus' life. If you've never read the Gospel of John, I really encourage for you to check it out. It's a great detailed story of Jesus' best friend's perspective of Jesus' life. And chapter 13, we're later in the book. There's 21 chapters. And we're getting really, really close to the cross. And if you don't know the story of Jesus, the cross is where Jesus dies. And so Jesus, getting closer to the cross, knows that his death is coming, and he grabs his best friend, he kind of huddles him up, and he takes him into this room. It's called the Upper Room Discourse, and it's only in the Gospel of John. And he sits his best friends down, and he says, I got to tell you guys some things, because I'm going somewhere where you're not going to follow. I'm going to a place that you guys literally can't follow. And they're really confused. They don't know what he's talking about. They're like, of course we can follow you. We've been following you for over 3 years now, Jesus. Anywhere you go, we're going to go there too. And Jesus is like, you're not getting it. And so he has this conversation with them. And then he says, hey, I really guys want you guys to understand this thing. There's this thing that you're going to be known for that's going to identify you with me. And I really want you to get it. I want to point it to you. Jesus says this in chapter 13, verse 34. He says this, a new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Jesus says the reputation of a Christian and of the church is that you're supposed to love people the same way that I loved you. Okay, well, how did Jesus love you and me? Well, if you kept reading John's story, you're going to learn that Jesus, ultimately, he goes and dies an innocent death. He goes to the cross as an innocent man. But he dies not for himself because he's innocent. No, he dies for you and for me and for anybody that puts our faith in Jesus. He stands in our place that we can be made right with God. And Jesus says, I loved you that way. Now I want you to go love people the same way. It's an incredible call to any believer and the church as a whole that our reputation to the world is that we should be loving people selflessly with no expectations in return, with no favor chart that we're recording somewhere, that we should love people selflessly. And by doing that, we would pull attention to God. In fact, by loving people the same way that we love Jesus, we're actually introducing them to the God that loved us first. I remember when I was in high school, I was 16 years old when I met Jesus. I'd grown up at New Heights, but for the longest time, I just kind of avoided him. And I was invited to a church camp through a series of events, and I went to the church camp, and I had a blast, and I met some friends that really changed my life. They loved me in such a way that I was struggling to understand why. I was waiting for the selfish motive behind their love, but I couldn't find it. And after a week at camp, eventually I came to the conclusion, these guys know Jesus better than I do, and I want to get on board with how they know Jesus. And so through those relationships, I was introduced to God, and he changed my life. Now, I went back to school after that. I was at Mountain View High School, and my church friends weren't at Mountain View High School with me. And for a while, I kept my church friends and my school friends separate from one another. I really don't know why. Part of me feels like maybe I was embarrassed that my school friends would think my church friends were weird, or I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I kept them separate. And it wasn't until years later that eventually I started to blur those lines, thinking my school friends might actually enjoy my church friends, and my church friends might actually help me in sharing the gospel with my school friends. And as I blurred the lines, I'll never forget a conversation I had with one of my school friends from Mountain View. He said to me privately in the minivan, as we're sitting in a parking lot somewhere, he said, Mark, why did it take you so long to introduce us to your church friends? He said, those guys are great. I would have been hanging out with those guys years ago if you actually would have introduced me to them. And there was a moment of shame for me there, embarrassment, but it also clicked. It clicked for me that I was missing out on the opportunity of what Jesus was talking about. I was missing out on the opportunity of growing the reputation of not only Christians, but of God. That if I would actually blend the line and let my church friends and my school friends come together, that they would experience the same thing that I experienced at that church camp. And maybe as they experience the same thing that I experienced at that church camp, maybe they would come to the same conclusion that I came to at camp, which was, I don't know the God that my church friends do, and I want to know him because there's something different about him. My challenge to you who are listening, if you're a believer, I'd love to challenge you to say, hey, can you blur the line a little bit between the church friends and the school friends, or the church friends and the sports friends, or the church friends and the art friends, or the church friends and the video friends, or whatever it is. Can you blur the line? Can you create an opportunity for the reputation of God to grow as your friends come into contact with the love of God? And maybe there's going to be opportunities there where you get to introduce people to the God that changed your life. And if you're listening and you've never met God and you're at a point where you're curious and you're trying to figure things out, let me tell you something. I know what it feels like to feel like something's missing, that there's a piece missing in your heart and you're searching for, I got to find the fix to this because it's driving me crazy. And you're going to search relationships, you're going to search hobbies, you're going to search careers, you might even search a certain money value. I got to get so much money, then it's going to get it there. Listen, let me save you some pain and heartache. The person that you're looking for is Jesus. He's the only solution. He's the only solution that can fit that missing piece. He's the only person that you're looking for, really. And so if you're at a point where you want to meet him, it's a really just simple prayer. You can close your eyes and close your hands and just say, Jesus, I think you're one I'm looking for. I'm nervous even to make this prayer. Would you introduce yourself to me? Would you help me come into contact with the love that is demonstrated in your story? And I promise you, he will not disappoint you. Guys, I just, again, appreciate that you guys listen. And just final challenge, the reputation of the church and of Christians is that we should love people the same way that Jesus loved us. And by doing that, we are introducing them to the God that changed our lives. I'd love to take a moment, just pray for us. I'd love for you to pray with me. God, I'm just grateful for the reality that we get to mimic the love that you've shown us. And by doing so, we get to glorify you. How great is it that when we put on the jersey, when we step onto your team, the way that we do that is not through pride or arrogance, but through humility and sacrifice. God, thank you for giving us a purpose and a model that we can follow as we try to love people the same way that you loved us. Thank you for being patient with us when we don't. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to introduce people to the God that changed our lives. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Passion. Savior, All right, guys, that is all that we have for you. Something I wanted to highlight, though, is that we are in the middle of Move Up Weekend. So if you're a 5th grader, you are now a 6th grader. You're in middle school. And if you're an 8th grader, you are now a freshman in high school. So you guys, welcome. So to all of you guys, really get online, check out the links and stuff that we have coming up. And we are just excited to see you guys next week. See you guys later.